often in this committee. I'm a former federal employee. I used to work at OMB. One of OMB's jobs is to help manage the federal workforce. They work very closely with OPM, and we deal a lot with, the regulations and the legal system around federal employment. And I really want to emphasize the comments that were made by the ranking member about how unusual this bill is. We just had a letter introduced into the record from the Heritage Foundation that is supporting this bill because of misguided efforts to essentially stoke segregation, division, and create a victim-oppressor narrative, essentially, is what this letter of support says. But what is particularly peculiar about this massive bill that's been introduced, and I want to note that the co-sponsor of this bill, or this primary sponsor of this bill in the Senate, is Mr. JD Vance, our vice president-elect, is it literally, as the title says, is about dismantling diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in the federal government. It revokes executive orders, it amends the Civil Rights Act, and it amends other parts of the federal code that protect our federal employees. And then it has this peculiar section that the ranking member talked about, which is actually essentially creating lists of federal employees and contractors that would never be eligible to work for the federal government again. Now, we have a word for that in common parlance. We call it blacklisting. And blacklisting comes from the 1950s, when here in this House of Representatives, there was a committee on un-American affairs that was convened under Joe McCarthy. The purpose of that was to purge the federal government and to accuse federal employees and blacklist them from future federal employment. So I'd like to say, welcome to the new House Committee on Un-American Affairs and to the new McCarthyism, because we have arrived here today with this bill. So let's talk about what exactly is trying to be accomplished by this bill and by the upcoming administration, which the vice president-elect is participating in here. Now, okay, let's take the argument to its logical extension that this is really about making sure that we have qualified individuals inside the federal government. So my question is then, why is the president-elect choosing absolutely unqualified cabinet secretaries to be at the head of every single agencies? We've got now a worldwide wrestling executive who's going to run education. We've got a sexual predator who was about to have a bipartisan report released by the House of Representatives to be our AG. We've got a Fox News commentator who's going to run the military for us. So if my colleagues across the aisle want to talk about qualifications, they want to talk about efficiency, they want to talk about the federal workforce, then let's talk about it, because you're talking about putting into place leadership in these federal agencies who are absolutely unqualified, who are dangerous, and know nothing about the agencies that they're about to be appointed to lead. So this is not about qualifications. This is not about having a qualified federal workforce. This is about laying the ground for the purge that they plan on January 20th and in the days afterwards. And we know that because the very organization for whom the chairman just submitted this letter of support is the Heritage Foundation, who wrote Project 2025, which gave us the blueprint for the purge itself and what they are planning inside every single one of these agencies. So we need to be clear-eyed about what this actually is and about what is trying to be accomplished and why, 4 weeks before we're about to adjourn for the holidays, the Republicans are bringing this bill to a markup without an actual hearing. This is modern McCarthyism. They are preparing for a purge. They are going after members of the federal government who are advancing because they are people of color, women, LGBTQ+, other members of our community who have been excluded systematically from participating in federal service and leadership positions, and then they're going to put their own unqualified loyalists in there to take out our federal workforce. That is what this bill is about. It's about creating a statutory framework to do that, and we're going to fight it every step of the way. With that, I yield back.